Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are kicking off this week on a Monday night slate, Nate, talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves hosting those Atlanta Hawks. Make sure you do check out Nate's article up on playpicks.com today. Got some great best bets and player props for you. And do like and subscribe to that video and page, as we will be bringing you a couple other videos today, including our player props video. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for today, Nate. Let's get into it.
Yeah, the Wolves are hovering between 2 and 3 point favorites. There's some key injury news to monitor there, with both D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns questionable. The total has crept up from 219 to 221, where it sits right now. And looking at the other 9 games on this Monday slate, we got Wizards +5 at Pacers. We got Thunder +5 at Pistons. Sixers -8 at the Hornets, who are going to rest Terry Rozier. Obviously, no LaMelo Ball, who's out on the COVID list. Grizzlies +5 at the shorthanded Heat. The Cavs +6.5 at the Bucks. We got Nuggets +4 at Bulls. Spurs +8 at Suns. Clippers -3.5 at Blazers, and then the Magic are whopping +16.5 at the Warriors. But we're looking at competitive games here. I mean, it seems like a lot of this is going to depend on whether Towns or Russell plays. My impression is that Russell will sit, it being kind of a short rest situation, and that Karl Anthony Towns will be ready to return. He's just dealing with a bruised tailbone. I also think that Patrick Beverley is going to return from a multi-week absence if he's feeling at all good enough to go through that groin injury, because this guy lives for opportunities like trying to cover and shut down Trae Young. And Jaden McDaniels is expected to play through an injury, through illness, I'm sorry. So I think all that spells very good things for the Wolves defense, which doesn't necessarily need a lot of help at home. It's the number 2 defense in the league. It's number 1 against 3-pointers, number 3 in total field goals, and 3 in points per game allowed. They've gone under in 10 of 13 home games, those games averaging 207. They went under in both of their last meetings with Atlanta in January last season, those games averaging 209. The reason we're seeing a total of 221, Josh, I guess, is because Atlanta has figured out its offense on the road. Number 1 rating in their last 3, those games against the Spurs, Grizzlies, and Pacers, not exactly the iron of the league in terms of defense. And the Hawks defense has been really good in that span too, at 6th. They're not exactly playing at a blinding pace. I can dive more into the exact numbers. But I mean, it's just that neither of these teams really capitalize on what the other does poorly, meaning the Hawks are not scoring a ton of points off threes. Minnesota is good at 3-point defense. Minnesota's given up a ton of free throws. Hawks are 27th in percentage of points off free throws when playing on the road. So, I mean, the under's the starting point for me here. I know that the numbers indicate Hawks losing on the road because that's what they did a lot to start the season, but I'm a little concerned. I mean, definitely if both Cat and Russell are out, I don't know if they can cover against this team. And I just feel like Atlanta's kind of pulling it together at this point and could use this as an opportunity to buck trends, being that they haven't covered in hardly any back-to-backs on the road for years now, but they might be able to do it tonight.
They might, yeah. I mean, the playoffs were a little bit of a different story for the Hawks, too, covering on the road. That was something they did a couple of times there. I know we're talking regular season here, but I was a little bit surprised at how badly Atlanta started the season on the road because of the way that, Ice Trae loves to sort of seem to take on that villain role. And he's actually carried it over into the season, in terms of playing well on the road and getting his. It's everybody else around him that definitely you see a huge decrease in their production. There's also the fact that, Atlanta is also looking at potential injuries tonight as well. If a couple guys can't go for them, Okongu's still out, Bogey and Hunter, as we know, are out, and then Cam Reddish is still questionable. You mentioned Trey; he's nursing a bit of an injury. So is Kevin Huerter. They both look like they're going to play tonight, so no worries there. Just a little bit of hobbled and reasons that I would continue to not necessarily feel great, to feel great rather about the under, as you mentioned. I know there's a bunch of questionable guys on Minnesota as well, but those are also their offensive players. When you look at who scores the ball for them, that could be out tonight. So yeah, I think all in all, the under feels really good here because of what you said a couple of times in terms of how much better Minnesota is on the road on defense. I think the other thing that you have to look out for tonight, specifically for Minnesota, is it going to continue in terms of what they're doing down low? You kind of mentioned both teams won't be able to take advantage of the other team's weaknesses. One place that I do like Minnesota to be able to sort of contend around the rim, and it's a little bit dependent on Cat. That's why that makes me a little bit nervous in terms of him being a little bit questionable, because he has stepped up his defensive rating and prowess a little bit, enough for Minnesota to at least have a little bit more of a presence down low. With the fact that Clint Capella and Trae Young are still going to be playing tonight, initially I also wanted to lean towards taking Minnesota. I think you just need to monitor who's playing though. If it's full strength tonight, I'd still feel really good about the under and probably lean a little bit towards Minnesota. But if Cam Reddish plays too, it gives them another wing defender, and one of Cat or Russell or someone does not play tonight, I think I feel better about Atlanta. So as far as the spread itself, I'm going to be monitoring that because I think Atlanta did fix their defensive woes, and I think it starts and ends with Trae Young, whose usage rate on the road is a little bit higher. His numbers are pretty much identical on the road as they are at home this year. He's been pretty consistent both places, scoring 26 points on pretty much the same splits, around 40, 45, 39, and like 90 splits this season on wherever he's playing. But it is a matter of what everybody else does around him as well. And they've actually upped their game as well, as you mentioned, the offensive rating that they've had in their last three at the top of the league, which is kind of where I expected them to be at the beginning. So I think that's more of who they are, which is why if both teams are at full health, I do like Minnesota because of the way they play at home, but you lose one of those big three for Minnesota tonight, and I would actually take that Atlanta spread as soon as I see somebody sitting for them in that capacity.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about not changing much, though. If Cat is out over a 43-game sample size in his last couple seasons when he's out, the Wolves' defensive rating does not change at all because Naz Reid is as good of a defensive player, and he has the same defensive rating as Cat this year. But we know he is a far, far worse offensive player. So that's why I would hammer the under there, assuming at this point that Cat doesn't play. If he does play, I think we still don't see a shootout, really. No. Atlanta, we talked about their struggles on back-to-backs. They're scoring just 105 this year in 5 back-to-back situations. They're 1-4 straight up and against the spread, and their one cover is against the Magic. They have not done well against the better Western Conference. They're 3-7 against them, against the spread there, and 1-6 when road dogs against anybody. So I don't necessarily see Trae just like lighting it up here in this back-to-back situation at all. You look at how the Wolves have been scoring when they tend to light it up. They're fifth in percentage of points off threes and fast break points. Both things Atlanta does well stopping, especially lately. And in Minnesota's last 5 home games particularly, they have the best defensive rating. They have a 97 defensive rating in their last 6. So just fantastic feeding off that home crowd there. And Trae Young, always kind of brings out the best in those road crowds at this point. I think that was, his heel role in the playoffs last year carried over to why Atlanta was unable to win, between the refs, not really liking his game and the opposing teams being geared up to say, you're not going to embarrass us on our home floor. So I think Minnesota just comes to play with the defense tonight. Hopefully we see Pat Bev, and probably we'll see an under if that's the case.
Yeah, that's fine. And the more, you talk about Cap, not likely, less likely to play, it seems, than likely, monitoring that, I would, if he does fail to play, probably see that spread continue to go, actually move towards, Atlanta, which is right now +2.5 on FanDuel. If that does happen, I would jump right on that money line for Atlanta, +120. with that under combined, right there, especially with Cat not playing, 221 just feels way too high for these two, especially for Minnesota to get theirs like that. So that under right there, parlayed with the money line for Atlanta, gets you plus 300 on your money. I'm just going to be monitoring that to see if Cat doesn't sit. That's what I'm going to pounce on right away before that can move too far. So I think we're pretty aligned here, Nate. We'll see what happens. Make sure you do stay on thelines.com as we've got updates on who's playing each and every single day. Going to be really important for this one tonight. And do like and subscribe, as we've got a couple other videos that we'll get into for you today. And until we see you next, happy betting.